My parents always complain they're broke. It's like the background static of every phone call, every Sunday dinner, every conversation that starts with, "How have you been?" and ends with a list of unexpected expenses. I'm Sarah. 32 years old. Single. No kids. I live alone in a small one-bedroom apartment in downtown Chicago. I work full-time as an account manager for a mid-sized tech company. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Mine and most of the time theirs. Every weekend I drive out to Naperville, a suburb west of the city where my parents live in the same two-story house I grew up in. My older sister Diana is usually there too with her 3 boys, Eli, Noah, and Mason. They tear through the house like a storm, spilling juice, yelling about video games and dragging toys across the floor. Diana complains about how hard it is being a stay-at-home mom. Mom nods sympathetically and Dad opens another beer. Sunday dinners are always the same. A noisy kitchen filled with the smell of pot roast, mashed potatoes, and the faint undercurrent of guilt. I bring groceries, sometimes wine, sometimes cash slipped into an envelope that's just to help with the gas bill, or to cover the unexpected repairs on the water heater. No one ever asks outright. They don't need to. The silence between their words always says enough. Still working too much? My dad will ask, half laughing as I walk through the door, arms full. You should take a break sometime. Life's short. I smile. I always smile. Mom will pull me into the kitchen and whisper about how the property taxes went up again or how the dishwasher is acting up. I nod like I'm taking mental notes. Because I am. This has been my role for as long as I can remember. The reliable one. The responsible daughter. The one who has no real obligations, so of course she's the one who helps. After dinner, while the boys run wild and Diana scrolls through Pinterest on her phone, she'll casually slide a printed list across the table. Soccer starts next week. Eli needs new cleats, Noah needs uniforms, and Mason has to get those braces checked again. Oh, and they're outgrowing everything. At the bottom, a total, $1,450. I nod. I'll take care of it. Always do. Diana smiles like I've just saved her life. Mom pats my hand like I'm a good soldier. Dad raises his beer in a half-toast and turns back to the Cubs game. I pull out my phone to snap a photo of the list. It's a new iPhone. Something I saved 3 months for after my old one finally gave out. As I press the shutter, I feel my mother's eyes on me. That the new model? She asks, her tone sharp but wrapped in a smile. Over $1,000, right? I just think, when the family's struggling, it might be smarter to wait on stuff like that. I don't respond. I just slip the phone back into my purse and smile. Because that's what I do. I smile. I pay. And I disappear until they need me again. It happened on a Tuesday. Mom called me during her lunch break, asking for help printing out boarding passes for her and Dad. We're finally taking that wine country trip your Uncle Mark gifted us, she said with a giggle. Just a quick getaway to Napa. I told her to swing by my apartment after work, that I'd help her from my laptop. She showed up an hour later, chatting about flight delays and luggage weight limits while I booted up her email. She handed me a USB drive and sat at my kitchen island, sipping tea like it was any other evening. As I clicked through the folders looking for the boarding passes, I saw it, nestled in a folder labeled Financials, a PDF titled, Savings Under Confirmation Under 2023.pdf. I shouldn't have opened it. I really shouldn't have. But the name caught me off guard and curiosity, dangerous, loyal curiosity, got the better of me. The document was from First National Bank. A high-yield joint savings account. The balance, $103,492.07. And in the notes section, a single line of text, reserved for Ethan, wedding fund. Ethan. My father's son from his first marriage. The half-brother I never quite felt related to. He never lived with us full-time, only came around for holidays and birthdays growing up. But in recent years he'd become a ghost, appearing on Instagram beside his beautiful girlfriend in ski resorts and rooftop bars, but never at family dinners. Never when things needed to be paid for. I stared at the screen, blinking slowly. $100,000. $100,000 sitting quietly in a savings account under my parents' names, untouched, growing interest, waiting for Ethan to get married. And all this time, every Sunday, every phone call, every passive-aggressive sigh from Mom about rising bills, I had been wiring money. Grocery runs. Utility bills. car repairs, Diana's endless kid-related expenses. Always me. Always without question. They said they were struggling. They said they couldn't make ends meet. They said they didn't want to ask, but there was no one else to turn to. I remembered the time I canceled my weekend trip to New York because Dad needed new tires. The time I skipped replacing my broken laptop because Mason needed braces earlier than expected. The time I delayed my own dental surgery for almost a year because Mom's blood pressure medication wasn't covered. And yet somehow they'd squirreled away 6 figures for a man who hadn't called them in months. My head spun. My hands were cold. I didn't say anything to Mom. I found the boarding passes, printed them, and handed them over with a tight smile. She kissed my cheek and said, "You're always so helpful," then left like nothing had changed. But everything had. I sat alone at the kitchen table after she left. Phone face down, laptop still open, heart pounding in that quiet, suffocating way that signals the beginning of something irreversible. It wasn't just the money. It was the fact that they never told me. That they never considered how it would make me feel. That they'd taken my generosity, my silence, my supposed strength, and turned it into a resource, one they could mine without guilt. They didn't need me to give. They expected me to. And worse, they had plans for someone else. Someone who hadn't earned it. Someone who hadn't been there. Someone who just happened to be a son. I didn't confront them right away. For 3 days I walked around with the knowledge burning a hole in my chest. I rehearsed conversations in the shower, in the car, even in the frozen food aisle at Trader Joe's. I told myself I was waiting for the right moment. But the truth was, I didn't know how to ask your parents why they thought your life didn't matter as much as your half-brothers. That Sunday I made the drive to Naperville. I brought the usual groceries as if nothing had changed. But everything had. My heart was beating harder, my jaw clenched tighter, my eyes sharper. I watched them with new clarity, how casually they asked me to set the table, how quickly Diana passed me another expense list as I helped Mom in the kitchen. After dinner, when the kids were distracted with screens and Diana had stepped outside to take a call, I finally said it. "I saw something on your computer the other day," I said, trying to sound calm. "A savings account. With over $100,000 in it. For Ethan's wedding." The silence was instant and sharp. Mom froze. Dad didn't even look up from the TV. "I wasn't snooping," I added. "The file was open when I printed your boarding passes." Mom exhaled slowly, then stood to collect the dishes. "That's not something we need to discuss." "It is for me," I said. "Because I've been covering expenses for years while you've been setting aside a fortune for someone who barely calls you." Dad finally spoke. "Ethan's getting married. That money is a gift. A head start." "And what about me?" I asked. "What about all the things I've paid for? All the times I dropped everything to help you?" "You're doing fine," Mom said without looking at me. "You have a stable job, no kids, no mortgage. You don't need that kind of help." I stared at her. "So because I don't have a husband or a baby, I'm not worth planning for?" "You're twisting this," Dad snapped. "This is about tradition. About family. Ethan is the only son. He carries the name." My mouth went dry. There was the name. Not effort. Not loyalty. Not sacrifice. Just bloodline. "He hasn't been around," I said. "He doesn't show up. He doesn't support you. But you're willing to give him 6 figures because of a name." Mom sat down, her voice more defensive now. "It's not about love. We love all our children. But some things are different. Sons have different responsibilities. They'll be the ones to take care of us when we're old." I almost laughed. "I've been the one taking care of you. I've been the one sending money, showing up, doing the work. And now you're telling me I don't count because I can't pass down a last name." "You're being dramatic," Dad muttered. "You're letting this money thing cloud your judgment." "It's not just the money," I said. "It's the principle. The deception. The fact that you've let me think you were struggling while quietly preparing to reward someone else." Mom's tone softened, almost pitying. "You've always been so strong, Sarah. You don't need the same things." I felt something crack inside me. "You keep saying I'm strong like it means I don't bleed," I whispered. "Like it means I don't feel overlooked. Like it gives you permission to forget that I have limits." Neither of them spoke. "I've never asked for anything," I said. "I've never needed much. But I did think, stupidly I guess, that you saw me. That you appreciated what I gave." Dad leaned back in his chair. You don't give because you want something in return. That's not what family does. No, I said quietly. But family also doesn't take and then pretend like I was never there. The room felt smaller, tighter. My childhood home no longer safe, no longer warm, just walls I didn't recognize anymore. I'm not angry because I want your money, I told them. I'm angry because for years I thought we were in this together. And now I see that I was just the fallback plan. The safety net. The silent contributor who didn't need to be considered. Mom looked away. And in that silence, in that terrible pause, I realized. They didn't deny it. Because they couldn't. Because deep down they knew it was true. A week after that conversation, a thick envelope from First National Bank arrived at my apartment. At first I thought it was just another promotional mailer. Credit card offers, loan rates, the usual noise. But when I opened it and read the first page, my stomach turned. It was an official notice of annual tax reporting requirements. For a high-yield joint savings account. The account from the PDF. The one with over $100,000 reserved for Ethan's wedding. And my name, Sarah Lynn Parker, was listed right there as a co-owner. I blinked, reread the heading, scanned for a mistake. Maybe it was a clerical error. Maybe they had the wrong Sarah. Or maybe, just maybe, it was exactly what I feared. I called the bank immediately, running on adrenaline and disbelief. After 30 minutes of holding, verifying my identity, and being transferred twice, I was connected to someone from account services. She was polite, efficient, and horrifyingly calm. Yes, Miss Parker, she confirmed. You are listed as the joint account holder with Mr. Thomas Parker. I never opened this account, I said. I never agreed to this. How is that even possible? She hesitated. Our records show a joint authorization form was signed in November 2021, allowing Mr. Parker to manage deposits and withdrawals while maintaining you as a full co-owner. That's impossible, I snapped. I never signed anything. The woman remained professional. Would you like us to email you a scanned copy of the authorization paperwork? Yes. Immediately. I hung up and sat still, staring at the wall until the email arrived. I opened the attachment, heart thudding. There was my signature. It looked like mine. The curve of the S, the slight tilt of the P. But the date, November 2021, made something click. That was when Dad had his minor heart surgery. I remembered rushing to the hospital after work, frantic and exhausted. I remembered him handing me a clipboard with a stack of forms, saying it was just standard consent paperwork for billing. Don't worry about reading it all, he'd said. It's just hospital stuff. They always need signatures. I had signed without reading. And now I was legally bound to a six-figure account I didn't know existed, tied to a purpose I was never part of, and fully exposed to any tax implications or penalties if something went wrong. If they cashed it out suddenly, I'd be liable. If they underreported it to the IRS, my name was on the line. They didn't just hide money from me. They used me, my name, my clean financial record, my trust, as a shield. As a buffer. As a silent guarantee. I called my father. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Then again. Finally, I sent a message. Why am I listed on Ethan's wedding account? No reply. Hours later, a text came from my mother. We thought it made sense. You're responsible. You've always been good with money. And we didn't want to risk the account if something ever happened to Dad. You always say family comes first. Family comes first. They'd taken the one value I had clung to all my life and used it against me. Turned it into justification for deception. The rage didn't come fast. It came slow, creeping, suffocating. Like a tide swallowing the sand beneath my feet. For years, I had worked overtime, cut corners in my own life, given generously without expectation, thinking I was supporting a family that appreciated me. But they hadn't seen me as a daughter. They had seen me as leverage. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor of my apartment with a legal pad, writing everything I remembered about that hospital visit. I Googled removing your name from a joint savings account. I made an appointment with a financial advisor. I emailed an attorney. Not because I wanted to sue my parents, but because I needed to reclaim something they had quietly stolen. My autonomy. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and realized I didn't feel like Sarah anymore. Not the Sarah who cooked Thanksgiving dinner, who sent birthday money, who drove to Naperville in snowstorms. That Sarah had been slowly erased. rewritten, rebranded into a reliable asset. Now I was something else, and I was done being useful. A few days later, I went back to my parents' house for the last time. Not to talk, not to forgive, just to collect the few things I'd left behind. Old tax documents, some books, a couple of childhood keepsakes tucked away in the closet of my old bedroom. They weren't home. A note on the counter said they'd gone grocery shopping. I didn't care. I moved quickly like a burglar stealing back what was already mine. Upstairs, everything was untouched. The same floral bedspread. The same poster of constellations on the wall from middle school. It felt like walking into a museum exhibit about a girl who no longer existed. I opened the closet, reaching for a cardboard box labeled, Sarah, college stuff. As I pulled it out, something small and dusty tumbled off the top shelf and landed with a soft thunk. A pale blue tin box rusted around the hinges. I remembered it immediately. Mom's old receipt box. She used to keep random things in it. Expired coupons, warranty cards, dry cleaning tags. I don't know why I opened it. I just did. Inside were old grocery lists, faded photos, a dried-out pen, and at the very bottom, a notebook. It was small, spiral-bound, with a pink and purple floral cover. I flipped it open. The first page was dated March 2004, written in my mother's distinct cursive. Ethan comes to live with us next week. We've decided to tell Sarah he's adopted. It'll be easier. She's too sensitive to understand he's Thomas's biological son. I sat down on the floor. Ethan wasn't adopted? I read the entry again. My heart was pounding. All my life, I believed Ethan was a distant cousin who my parents had taken in out of kindness. That's what they told me when he moved in. That his parents couldn't take care of him. That we were helping. That I was so lucky to have a new brother. I had welcomed him. I shared my toys, my room, my clothes. I gave him the top bunk because Mom said he was adjusting. I defended him at school when kids said he was weird. I included him in every birthday wish, every family game night. And it was all a lie. He was my father's son. From another woman. From another life. And my mother, who I had thought would never tolerate betrayal, had not only accepted it, she had brought it into our home and built a script for me to play along with. She had lied to protect Dad. Lied to preserve stability. Lied to a little girl who trusted her completely. The next few pages were grocery lists, reminders to pay bills, a few scribbled recipes. Then this. Asked Sarah to tutor 2 extra kids this semester. Said it was for extra savings. Truthfully, Ethan's summer program was more expensive than we planned. Another entry. Sarah offered to help with prom costs. Let her believe it was for Diana's boys. Ethan needed the tuxedo. Page after page, my generosity had been twisted, repurposed, quietly redirected to serve someone else's needs. They had used me for years, not just financially but emotionally. They built an entire story around me being the helper, the strong one, the selfless one, so they could take and never feel guilty. I felt sick. I stared at the notebook, my hands shaking. I had spent my life trying to be good. Good daughter. Good sister. Good citizen of this strange, carefully curated family dynamic. But it had never been a family. It had been a performance. And I was never the star. I was the crew. The backstage tech. The one making everything work so someone else could shine. I placed the notebook back in the box and stood up. I didn't take it. I didn't need proof. The truth was already inside me now, and it would never go away. I left the house without looking back. Without locking the door. Without leaving a note. There was nothing left to say. I found out about Ethan's wedding from Facebook. Not from my parents. Not from Ethan. Not even from Diana. Just a random tag in a photo posted by someone I barely remembered from high school. It was a professionally shot engagement picture. Ethan in a crisp suit, his fiancée beaming beside him in a sleeveless ivory dress, holding a Save the Date sign in a vineyard somewhere in California. The caption read, "Can't wait to celebrate Ethan and Jenna this fall. Such a beautiful couple, and what a generous gift from the family." My stomach clenched. Generous gift? I scrolled through the comments. $100K to start their life together? Well, talk about love and support. They're so lucky. Most people don't get a dime from their parents. I stared at the screen, reading and rereading the numbers like they might change if I blinked enough. The next day, I received a wedding invitation, sent to my parents' house. My name wasn't on the envelope. Not even a +1. Just Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Parker in elegant cursive. I waited. A day. Then no text. No call. No, I hope you'll be there. No, sorry we didn't talk before things got hectic. Nothing. They hadn't forgotten me. They had excluded me. On purpose. I held the invitation in my hands, thick cardstock with embossed lettering and gold foil accents. It smelled like money. Like legacy. Like everything I was never meant to be a part of. I flipped it over. On the back was a quote. Family is the foundation upon which love is built. I laughed. A single sharp sound that didn't feel like me at all. This wasn't just a celebration. This was a ceremony of erasure. A glittering event built on the backs of my silence, my savings, my sacrifices, and I wasn't even welcome to watch. I sat at my kitchen counter that night, staring at the invitation under the soft buzz of my fridge, thinking back to all the things I had missed for them. The concerts I hadn't gone to. The jobs I didn't apply for in other states because I was too far to help. The therapy I couldn't afford because Diana needed help with the boys' tuition. And for what? To be left out of the one event that put it all on display? I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just felt hollow. Like I'd finally reached the last page of a book I'd spent my life reading, only to realize I was never in the story. I put the invitation back in the envelope and slid it into a drawer I never opened. Let them have their big day. Let them toast to legacy and loyalty and whatever lies they told themselves to sleep at night. I wouldn't be there. Not because I wasn't invited, but because I finally knew where I stood. The silence wasn't an announcement. It wasn't a grand statement or a power move. It started with a missed call. Then a text from Diana that said, "The boys are asking about you. Are you okay?" I didn't reply. I stopped answering the family group chat. I muted Mom's "just checking in" messages. I let voicemail do the talking for me. Each notification I ignored was a tiny reclaiming of space I hadn't realized I'd lost. No one knew I had blocked their numbers, at least not at first. I didn't make a scene. I didn't declare war. I just disengaged. And that, apparently, was louder than anything I could have screamed. A month passed. Then another. It was early November when the call finally came through, on my work line. I hesitated before answering. But when I saw Mom's cell blinking on the screen, I picked up. Her voice was sweet at first. "Sarah, honey. It's been so long." I stayed quiet. "We haven't heard from you," she continued. "We're concerned." I waited. Then she said it. "Diana's stretched thin. Mason needs braces and the insurance isn't covering everything. And we just got the heating bill. It's outrageous. I hate to ask, I really do. But if you could help just this once." I closed my eyes. Of course. Of course that's why she was calling. Even now, even after everything, they only remembered me when something needed fixing. I opened my banking app. I looked at my balance. I could help. Easily. I could wire the money in less than a minute and go back to being the dependable one. Instead, I texted one sentence. "I think you should ask Ethan. I hear he just got a $100,000 head start." Then I blocked her number. No anger. No drama. Just finality. That night, I sat in my apartment, a glass of wine in hand, the city buzzing outside my window like it always did. But for once, it didn't feel like noise. Felt like life moving forward. Without them. I realized something I'd never dared admit before. I didn't miss them. Not the manipulation. Not the guilt. Not the endless expectation that I would always be available, generous, silent. They didn't love me for who I was. They loved me for what I gave. And when I stopped giving, they didn't try to reach me. They just waited until they needed more. But I wasn't theirs anymore. Not the wallet. Not the crutch. Not the fallback. Just Sarah. No more. No less. Freedom didn't arrive with fireworks or some dramatic epiphany. It came in the little moments. The quiet ones. The ones I used to overlook. It was the first Saturday I didn't drive to Naperville, and instead spent the morning sleeping in without guilt. It was buying a dress I'd eyed for months, one I used to put back on the rack because someone else needed the money more. It was booking a solo trip to Sedona, Arizona, where I hiked red rocks under a vast sky and cried at the sunrise without knowing exactly why. I didn't make some giant speech to reclaim my life. I just started living it. I went to yoga again. Started cooking for myself instead of eating leftovers from family gatherings. I signed up for a pottery class just because I wanted to feel clay between my fingers. I laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in years at a stupid rom-com on Netflix. And when I looked around my little apartment, cluttered and quiet and completely mine, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Safe. Not because I was protected by others, but because no one else had a key to my peace anymore. Diana sent a text once. You could have said goodbye to the boys. They miss you. I stared at the message, then deleted it. Not because I didn't care, but because caring had cost me too much. There were no apologies. No surprise knocks at my door. No tearful reunions begging for forgiveness. And that too was an answer. I wasn't waiting for them anymore. I wasn't waiting for recognition, for justice, for an explanation that would never come. I had given them everything, and when I stopped, they simply moved on. That silence spoke volumes. So now when people ask about my family, I say very little. Not because I'm ashamed, but because I've learned that not everyone who shares your blood deserves access to your life. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about release. About walking away without slamming the door because you finally realize you don't need to be inside anymore. I didn't get closure, but I did get space. And in that space, I found myself again. Some stories don't end with screaming or slammed doors. Some end in silence. In the moment you choose yourself over people who never truly chose you. I used to believe that love was about sacrifice. That being the strong one meant you didn't get to ask for anything. That if I just gave enough, stayed quiet enough, proved myself enough, eventually they would see me. But love without respect isn't love. Family without fairness isn't family. And loyalty without choice? That's just a cage dressed up as duty. I wasn't asking to be the favorite. I wasn't asking for $100,000. I was just asking to matter. So I walked away. Not to hurt them, but to finally stop hurting myself. And now I want to ask you, whoever's watching, listening, may be feeling that same familiar sting in your chest. If your family treated you like a wallet instead of a daughter, would you have the strength to walk away? Yes or no? Tell me in the comments. Share your story. You're not alone in this. And if this story moved something in you, if it made you feel seen, heard, or just less alone in your silence, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We tell stories that aren't always pretty, but they're real, raw, honest. The kind that make you ask questions. The kind that help you find your answers. Because someone out there needs to hear this just as much as you did. Maybe it's you.